I'm recording. So good morning, everyone. Glad to see you all this morning. I'm going to start and introduce our first speaker. And pardon me if I mispronounce your name. Xinyuan Li received their bachelor's degree in biological sciences from Sichuan University and their master's degree in philosophy from the University of Edinburgh. They are currently working as an independent philosophical practitioner. Their current academic interest focuses on social epistemology and the philosophy of biology. Welcome.
Yes. Am I audible?
You're audible.
Is the audio clear enough? I don't it. Okay. So the audio quality is okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
it could refine it a little bit if you know how. It's a little bit staticky.
Hey, that's better now?
Yeah, it is.
So the topic of the presentation shall be what it's like to be transgender and what does it mean for philosophical concept.
You could speak a little louder. I think it'll help overcome some of the static.
Okay, speak okay, is it? Oh, just come closer. Okay, is it better now?
Try speaking. Go ahead.
Okay, the topic, the paper is what it's like to be transgender and what does it mean for philosophical counseling. Okay, it's going to be a relatively dark topic. So first, we know that historically, the overall institution of mental health hasn't really been very friendly to LGBT people and trans people in general. So, from the sort of Victorian institutions where really dark things happened to more contemporary ones. So, let's just say, and we know that science might actually relapse. So, the purpose of paper is twofold. First, I shall then try to outline what's sort of justified historical malpractices within the cognitive therapies. Is primarily the older ones have already been rather obviously unethical discredit, but they context on the matter. So if you currently all the major bodies such as APA have denounced such practices, but in the reality is of course much more green in most of the world. So even if you go to places like say Reddit and look at transgender communities, you can actually see people listing say this certain therapist. Say from UK, you can see people complain about therapists in the NHS trying to go for a relatively mild form, and in China when the context are that so there are actually you can actually see people just give out little leaflets if you say say across from West China Hospital Chengdu, and you can actually just see sort of this convergence therapy leaflets just blatantly. So with that in mind, let's first take a look at how. First, the focus here will still be primarily on therapies that belong to the cognitive traditions. So first, let's so to summarize, they are often this so-called therapeutic efforts often uses the psychological theories and practices in a way that aims to change one's sexual orientation or gender identity. But the focus here will be solely on being transgender and scope. So a correspondence of mine, a psychiatrist. So she told me that most CBT, that is the other approach practitioners have, let us say, very lax requirements for what they consider to be, or rather to say they are intuitive. They'll see something negative. A lot of time, most times it became sort of a automatic assumption for practitioners. So here's the problem. Say that contemporary psychotherapy and psychology in general valorizes self-esteem, and in doing so, they sort of bottom themselves into a rather vicious sort of justification that is, say it's not very logically coherent, but say just for not very logically coherent. That's say because there is something is negative, then something must be under certain justifications and that. But suppose then you are just someone. So suppose you are a doctor. Someone comes to you just for a cold. So they were sweating, coughing, sneezing, and of course you wouldn't really immediately just tell them to get antibiotics. There is to so just to go for the more theoretically vigorous side. Let's say there's bacterial code, there's viral code. You have to distinguish. It is, well, in theory, theoretically they should be, but practically not. But let's suppose then the more vicious forms tend to take a step further, that they are it's currently discredited by empirical evidence. Historically, they might take step further and just say, yes, it is indeed something that's, say, inductive and negative, and therefore dealt with. So here's well, a general reconstruction that's say distorted, maladaptive, generally irrational negative thoughts can and should be treated as CBT, and another premise characterizes gender dysphoria, which is the distress you get, and say dissatisfied. It's very finding that certain social relationships being treated as such more bodily features very distressful and has that and so so of course the conclusion itself is now discredited by the empirical evidence. It's now false. So which means we have to reject one of the premises. And P1 is P1 is a very global one that's not very feasible to reject CPT as a whole, and P3 is the reports of the individual. So here I will now go to provide a argument for how they cannot epistemically reject P3, therefore disengage with the so first let's consider this reference. Say I am distressed. I feel distressed. So it is an avowal. It expresses my mental state as such. That's say you suppose you want to say you want to question reject it. Say so when I say I am distressed, you just said no, you're not. That is it seems very out of place, and not generally not very medical in a way, because it is a mental state. So it is an expressive. It's say or just say it is false because it lacks a truth condition. And and again, it has been already argued for by the lecture. Again, there's something that feels ungrammatical. More important, there is an infringement on the first person's autonomy. The second person is inappropriately treating his own interpretative assessments as authoritative. It is worth noting that lecture went for a sort of a weaker argument is ethical that seems to infringe on your bodily autonomy, but consider the following. Suppose that someone told you they were going to just add a lot of coriander to their dishes. So you suppose you're someone who finding coriander taste very nasty soap. Well, and you might question him as saying why, while the other person simply just drugs. It seems very reasonable to not say that that person have some very strange problems, unless they might say they actually proceed to eat it and just make a very painful face and say tasty. Then it's only seems reasonable to question what that person might have a sort of questionable grasp on the concepts of tasty. Yes, saying, and if he first proceed to eat the coriander and said it's very tasty and happy. It seems more reasonable to assume that he has sort of a access to a, let's say, mental states of tasting coriander that you will find it's just taste so small. So this is the concept of qualia. Here, like to taste something and other adjacent. And now we look at the diagnosis or the reports. And suppose that that person sort of just gets access very close, very just that is to say the person is more epistemically authoritative than you when they make utterances like coriander, tasty, or they feel distressed. Then you then as the three seems to be something very hard to reject. Then reject the two, which is to say that the feeling of Victoria is not really something well irrational or inductive in a way. So there's more to it since well we established. So when I first came out to my family, they sort of just asked why, and I really had no answer back then. Now, no answer here. Now, just can't really think of any sort of justification for why I am sinner, why I feel distressed. Then seems to, well, let's compare this to sort of our coriander case. So that's the puzzling thing might be that say we seem to just accept that the other person just really like coriander more easily or more easily than the other person expresses it's justified or finding coriander taste. So it results is if they right, it is reasonable to hope that these results provide for justification. But suppose that well, that seems to me say it seems that first there to construct comparison that's say you might imagine and suppose yourself tasting something very tasty. On the other hand, if you are a cisgender person, you might not really conceive such mental states like this or feeling very sorry, distress. Here we have a and look at the other way. So I shall now introduce the concept of deep disagreement. So deep disagreement is different from the surface level disagreements. So is the audio okay?
It's pretty hard to understand a lot of the audio because it's distorted a bit.
Now just try to Wait. Okay, is that okay now?
Yeah, I think if
Better.
you speak loudly and try to focus onto the mic as best you can, I think it'll work better.
Okay, so let's take a look at disagreements. The disagreements are basically that disagreements say you disagree about something, you move to a say deeper belief, you move deeper into it, and then you tend to run into something persistent. Is the person just kind of felt their thoughts and all this very questionable about even if it's rationally resolvable. So Wittgenstein argued that such disagreements, right? So you run into this hard stop because you are running into what he called hinge propositions. So hinge proposition is something that is, say, it's not really, it is non-epistemic, it is groundless, it's just kind of there, and if you are familiar with the basic premises of any analytical phenomenology, that say Wittgenstein in uncertainty was arriving at the same idea as self, which is to say that hinge propositions constitute, we reconstruct them as propositions, but they are actually unreflexive states of being of unreflexive knowledges that that's why they are so well revised to demonstrate. So they say if I just grab this bottle of water, I'm assuming that well, there's something to be grabbed. In proposition, say I have two hands, and I can grab things very quickly. What does it mean? That say that we have sort of a accumulated evidence that say that's very this interpretive sexual normative disagreements, which is let's just say very hard to revise or rather completely impossible to revise if you take a the or empirical evidences just going again. It's completely it's they are this hinge they are and to reflect on my own experiences, you can see that I really cannot say that they are justified by anything really. But they seem to say constitute say part of say they infer that I hold on to a certain personal identity, that identity, then a lot of how I interact, perceive, and with other people and world rest on it. You will not have to think that's very grounded or basic or given. I mean that's it's very deep. So what does that mean for LBTC? Was to have to just interact with clients with a sometimes very negative attitude that is not really resolvable. So basically, say the big problem that's my correspondence sort of told me that a lot of practitioners just unthinkingly applied theoretics to something that just immediately seem to them as applicable. Is they do not examine the beliefs. Clients, of course, currently they have empirical evidence to say otherwise, but historically they don't. They just so for the approach LBTC, we have a very unique advantage here. That's we sort of get to know the clients, we get to know the depth of their systems of belief, and we get to know how the other approach and society in general, really just to sort of that's how it's I will now.
You're mute. You're mute. No one can hear.
Okay. So when was I mute? So now introduce the concept of systemic injustices. Colonial injustice is that when your testimony, when it's ought to be accepted, is not, and particular injustice is when certain concepts are sort of eluded of the general linguistics of the general population. So what does that mean for trans people that say something or something hinge is now constantly being denied by society? That's why I think with my previous arguments, I provided a sort of a philosophical picture of how to sort of negate and rather affirm the epistemic authority itself, and I think it's very relative because we know historical philosophies don't really concern themselves with trans people that much, and by sort of going on a sort of Wittgensteinian way, we can affirm their epistemic beliefs in themselves, and generally say something like so as far as how you approach, how you interact the world is constantly questioned. This is going to make this be the source of a lot of the lower the self-image here, pretender syndrome, and other lower self-ratings for trans people. And yes, another thing that say that we have, so LBTC, we also inherited the notion of unconditional self-acceptance rather than say going for a self-esteem approach like CBT. And self-acceptance means that you can say just say you have this aspect, you have been really desirable of yourself, and just the easiest argument to make is to make that it doesn't have to be a global rating. It's not yours. You might say you really want to get rid of your breast or something, but it's not really something to say yourself is a terrible person. Very powerful, which compared to a self-esteem image, which is very sort of in a global sort of way with contributors, negative contributors, and just which makes adopting the image of adopting the self-acceptance more desirable. Sorry about technical issues. That's it.
We have just a little bit of time left for questions and questions. All right. Thank you for that presentation. We now have time for questions. So I have a question for you.
Mm.
You are in what country?
Currently China.
China? And can you summarize what it's like to be transgender in China these days?
Well, it's well, let's just say we don't have hate speech laws. We don't have any discrimination laws. We didn't outlaw conversion therapy. They can operate in the open. And when you just browse social media, all the negativities will be uncensored. We also have is very big aversion towards political activism. So there's, say, if you wave a rainbow flag, you might get into legal trouble.
Okay. And you are a philosophical practitioner, and so do you see people who are transgender and
Yes, I've been doing this, offering them to my community for a while now.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of my clients are transgender like me.
And what's the most serious issues that come up in these consultations? Can you summarize what?
I think the most serious issues tend to be just say there's hopelessness.
What
That's
is it?
that they believe it won't get better for themselves, it won't get better for transgender people in this country in the future. They tend to have incredibly low self-esteem.
I see. I see. Okay. Thank you.
So how do you find the application of LBTC for your clients, particularly those who are transgender? What are you finding?
Well, I'm finding it's relatively more effective, but since we do lack, well, let us say historical philosophical sources, I tend to just adopt a more analytical philosophy approach. We examine I just sort of examine the basic beliefs in a very Wittgensteinian way. I try to just sort of argue with them, saying that perhaps say infer that say you have this very people misgenders you and you feel very bad about yourself, but you say you may only say you don't because you only have to be it's a very negative thing, but not something that say you have to rate yourself negatively for.
Mm-hmm. 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 So you work on their self-respect and apply analytical philosophy to try to get them to see the self-defeating nature of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And if do you have a way of determining whether you've been successful? What do you see as differences in your clients when they leave or they continue through therapy or you follow up with them? What do you see as signs of it being effective? Because you said it was effective.
Well, it can be pretty obvious because more effective. If it is effective, they tend to just be more freely socialize with people with less fear and generally being more open and some of them actually, I managed to get one to actually go look for a job. She was kind of just holed up in her parents' house for a year because all the activities.
I see. I see. So do you give them any behavioral assignments?
No, I don't. I didn't give you much behavioral assignments because I do think that say some of them can be, well, let's say being transgender, but I wouldn't really want to say expose them to the source of distress, as I discussed earlier. It's not inductive, it's just, yeah, you don't really get used to it. It's unreflexive. Like say, if you eat, that's say, let's go back to the coriander case. That's eating a lot of coriander isn't going to make you think they taste better.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Thank you. Yep.
We have time for one more question. Well, thank you for your presentation. And so with that, I'll move on to the next speaker.